well, Bhaktivinoda's contribution, obviously, and the persona of Gorkashadas Babaji Maharaj as a recluse. There are some very startling but inspiring anecdotes about his life, even some academic work in which his inner absorption is, along with other sadhus of the time, is included. And things like taking an eggplant and holding it in his hands, offering it to Bhagwan, and then eating it. Not the most appetizing or digestible, but he was living in another plane. So he was prominent in his time in that way. But comparatively, the contribution of Bhaktisiddhanta appeals to us more because, well, we're here because of it. And the reclusive status and inner absorption of Gorkashadas Babaji Maharaj is a little more distant. It's not reaching out to us. Indeed, he told Saraswati Thakur, his disciple, don't preach that, you're just going to be bothered by that. You'll get in the way of your bhajan. I can relate to that. Also, there's some truth to that. There's another side to it, of course, as well. So the anecdote, anyway, the story that I'm reminded of is how when Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj authorized one of Prabhupada's disciples, Bhakti Sudhir Goswami, he would take a sannyas from him to, yes, you can start a temple in the West under my auspices, if you like. This was a time when the International Society for Krishna Consciousness, that we were all in some way connected to, and I was a formal member of, being a disciple of Prabhupada, accepting all 3 initiations from him and so forth. We had the administrative body had some misunderstanding of the position of Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj and banned associating with him, which some of us didn't agree with. And so, you know the story. So this was the first temple then that was coming out of that, a new species, so to speak. Disciples of Prabhupada, influenced by, inspired by Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj, their Siksha Guru. In some cases, he became the sannyas guru of them, as in the case of Bhakti Sudhir Goswami, godbrother of mine, for example, who then started to take the recorded tapes, taped discussions, which he personally taped, the Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj, and with his permission, turned them into books. And we've seen some of the books, Sri Guru's Grace, Loving Search for the Lost Servant, and so on and so forth. So at any rate, when he set up his altar, Sudhir Goswami, in his temple, he thought that, yes, let us place on here the pictures of the gurus who have contributed most substantially, because the argument of Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj is, of course, that there are many scientists, but there's a few Einsteins, Newtons, and so on that stand out amongst the many stars like moons and change paradigms and so on and so forth. And so one way to draw the line is through those moons, which may go in a zigzag way like this rather than in a straight line. After all, you want a pranali, a line, a siddha pranali that is actually full of siddhas, not just a line. And you call it siddha because it's straight. Siddha also means cooked. Well done. So our paribar, if you will, coming from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, which he referred to when his disciples asked what paribar was from, he said, "You tell them the Bhakti Vinod paribar." So with the Bhakti Vinod paribar, and just to complete that point, his idea there, 2 points here at once. His idea there, of course, was that, well, here is a giant person in the Gaudiya community overall, and we're connected with him. We can refer to our line as the Bhaktivinoda Paribar as, for example, some refer to Lokanath's lineage as the Narottam Paribar, or to the Shamananda Paribar. Each of these two Paribars, Narottam Paribar, Shamananda Paribar, refer to not the original founders, but persons who made very unique contributions. The contribution of Narottam was broad in his preaching, and then there was internal reasons behind the forming of the Shamananda Paribar. But Shamananda is kind of the originator of the Paribar in a sense, but he had a guru, Hridaya Chaitanya, and he was not personally an associate of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, nor was Narottam. They came like half a generation later. The Paribars are thought to begin only with the original associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, with whom he comes to the world, and so on. These are two examples of how Gaudiyas refer to luminaries in the lineage and their lineage by their name, Narottam Paribar, Shamananda Paribar, even though they were not personally associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So Bhaktivinoda Paribar wasn't personally present at the time of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Leela, but Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur chose to refer to him in our Paribar as such. So back to Sudhir Goswami, when he made the altar, he was thinking, well, I'll put this picture, and Gorkishore, well, he didn't make a substantial contribution, so I'll take him off the altar. So there's Prabhupada and Sridhar Maharaj and Bhaktisiddhanta and Bhaktivinoda. He did like this. So this news of this came back to Pujyapada Sridhar Maharaj, and he called him and said, what have you done when you're not putting Gorkishore Das Babaji's picture on the altar? No. And he said, well, I thought, in light of your teaching, what was his substantial, contribution? And Sridhar Maharaj roared back, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. That was his contribution. So that picture quickly went up on the altar. So Krishna moves his devotees in different ways, some to move in a more reclusive direction, some in a more outgoing direction. And we have to evaluate their status by their measure of their faith and their inner absorption, out of which only the successful dissemination can arise. So anyway, Narottam Thakur was a lone disciple of Lokanath. We don't mean to dismiss him at all, and his name comes up in this song that I'm going to go through and try to shed some light on the implications of what Narottam has written here. This is at the very beginning of Prema Bhakti Chandrika, which is a book, incidentally, that Gorkishore Das Babaji Maharaj carried with him wherever he went. They said he was illiterate. I'm not sure what that meant. It probably meant not that he couldn't read, but that he wasn't educated and maybe didn't know Sanskrit and so forth. But surely he spoke Bengali, and he could read the songs of Narottam Thakur, and he felt echoing, or Prabhupada was kind of echoing him in a sense, that all the secrets of the Vedas are found in the songs of Narottam Thakur. Put in, it's quite a feat to take such complicated theological, philosophical ideas and put them into Bengali poetry that lend themselves to song. So a huge contribution on the part of Narottam Thakur. And this song is famous in ISKCON. It was introduced in ISKCON. I don't remember what year, but there's a nice story connected with it. At the time, in ISKCON, in all of the centers, which were fairly uniform in how in their liturgy, we would rise in the morning, attend the Mangal Artik, we would sing the Guru Vastakam prayers of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And then afterwards, later in the morning, at about 6 or 6:30, those disciples that were free and didn't have services like cooking or worshiping the deity and whatnot, as may be the case, they would sit at this is how we did it in New York and Los Angeles, at the base of Prabhupada's, Vyasapuja, and we would sing those prayers again. And that was like the Guru Puja, so to speak. On one occasion, we were singing it wrong, and instead of saying, how does it end? Monday Guru. Guru. We were singing Monday Guru, or the cow, our business of the cow, and the Guru. Prabhupada heard it, and he was kind of amused by that and corrected us. But of course, it's Krishna would say in those instances, Pujapachita Maharshi would say, I think you meant this, right? Because Baba Grahijan heart, and he's listening to the heart, he's feeling the heart. That's what's being offered. So we weren't offering arati to Prabhu, which is pretty customary now in all of the temples of ISKCON, and singing this particular song, Shri Guru Charana Padma Kibola Bhakti Satma. So one day we were in Calcutta. At that time, Calcutta Mount was a rented building. And we went on a walk with Prabhupada, and a couple of his disciples, unbeknownst to me, had talked with one another and come up with a plan. And their plan was to see if we couldn't offer arti to Prabhupada directly in a Guru Puja, which apparently they had maybe seen elsewhere or heard, or was done, or something to that effect. So when we were on the walk, one of the disciples asked Prabhupada, is it appropriate to offer arti to the Guru? So what do we know? But anyway, Prabhupada said, yes, of course, should be done. And Prabhupada would say things like this, and he'd be thinking, of course, he was thinking, yes, you should not. He's not thinking you should offer arti to me. But I'll give you another example of this. One time in a lecture in Mayapur, he said, and so, was relative to the discussion, which I don't recall all of it, obviously, but he said, so the Guru should be referred to as Thakur. Thakur means God. And he closed the lecture and went upstairs, and we followed him upstairs, and I think it was Bhakti True Swami said at the time, probably we were thinking that we'd like to refer to you as Thakur. And Prabhupada said, why? That's how distanced he was, from how we, heard it and understood. And we said, well, you just said it. And Prabhupada said, well, not now, not yet. And maybe later, like after I'm gone or something like that. So he was very humble and in his own way, despite his extraordinary campaign. But Prabhupada said, yes, of course, it's your duty. And so then those two disciples slipped to the back of the group on the walk and ran to the temple and arranged for an arti. And Prabhupada came back. So Prabhupada would walk, he would greet the deities, and then he'd go sit on his asana and chant Jai Radha Madhava and give a class. So they had the arti paraphernalia all ready for when Prabhupada sat down. And Chutananda Maharaj taught them this song, Shri Guru Charana Padma. And so they gave out some sheets and the arti began, and we sang the song for the first time. And then we didn't have internet in those days, but there was a way things got around nonetheless, and pretty quickly, because within a week, every temple in ISKCON was singing this song and offering arti to Prabhupada. And when it's gone on, and it'll go on eternally in that sangha. It's very sweet. So that's how it came to know about it. And some of you are familiar with it, most of you, but let's see if we can look at it verse by verse, word by word, and what we might be able to draw from it. I should say that there is a very brief commentary on Prem Bhakti Chandrika by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And so some of the things that we'll draw from it come from his insight. Narottam Thakur ki jai. Raghunath Thakur ki jai. So the verse begins, the song begins, Shri Guru Charana Padma, Kevala Bhakti Satma, Bandhu Muhi Sabala Namate. So here Narottam Thakur says Shri Guru Charana Padma. Charana Padma means lotus feet. This is one meaning. And Shri Guru obviously is a itself reverential way of referring to the Guru, Shri Guru. Shri Guru Charana Padma. But the word charana means feet, and Padma means lotus. So this is very common, right? The idea of lotus feet of the Guru, lotus feet of Krishna. The lotus is a symbol of beauty in the Sanskrit poetry. And it also resides in the water, but above the water. It reaches down with its stem into the mud, and the flower itself sits above the water. I believe in the Gita, Krishna has referred to the status of the sadhu, guru, as may be the case here, being one who, like the lotus, is in the water but above the world. He or she is in the world. Did I say world? In the water but above the water. He or she is in the world but not of the world. And that's a very unique combination, if you will. So he goes down into the world, she goes down into the world, in the mud of the world, if you will. Here we are. And rises above it at the same time and shows what you could be, what could come out of that mud by good association. So the lotus is an example of this. And it's thought that the Guru's feet never touch the ground. Now, you may be an illusion thinking that you've seen your Guru walking on the ground. But of course, this is again, a poetic expression. You see in the artwork of the Bhagavatam, Narada appearing as the Guru of Vyasa to correct him when Vyasa is feeling despondent, having compiled all the Vedic literature and feeling not complete, something's missing, and Narada's Guru appears on the scene, and of course, he's floating above the earth, bearing his veena and so on. Transcendental spaceman, we used to think of him as in ISKCON. So he doesn't touch the ground. But of course, this is the essential spiritual idea of it, to be in the world, but not of the world, and to and be a kind of he's described here as the abode of Prem Bhakti, that place beginning at his feet or her feet, where we can connect with our highest prospect, that which will bring out all the beauty of the self in relation to Bhagwan. That said, the word charana also means venerable in and of itself. So sometimes we find in the literature Guru Charana, Rupa Goswami Charana. So it means feet, and it means reverent. It's a reverential way of address. So the address here is full of great respect. Shri Guru Charana Padma. And Padma means feet again. So this is the lowest part of the body. Used to be that when sadhus did move about, they only moved by foot. It was thought to be inappropriate for a sadhu to adopt a means of conveyance other than the feet, which was something that stood out in the mission of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when, for example, he wore patent leather shoes and rode in an automobile on occasion, which was his way, of course, of trying to bring in the British. I guess at the time, patent leather shoes were hip, and to have an Indian sadhu that rode in a car like them, wore shoes like them, well, they could identify with that. So he was able to hit the depth of his insight and realization and commitment to, as Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj said, giving shape to the idea of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, what that would take. He conducted himself in these ways. But previous to that, it was a more custom that you would go by your feet. So before you come to the temple, you go to a lot of temples in India, old temples, there'll be a pump outside. That's where you would wash your feet before going into the temple. Nowadays, we wear shoes and socks, and still they want to take the shoes and the socks off, Guru, and wash his feet and so forth. It's a nice cultural thing that doesn't work too good with the Western mind, I would say. And those are details. What Narottam is exhibiting here is great respect for the Guru, which will have in his time, in the Indian subcontinent, there are cultural ways to express that and so forth. We may do it differently here. That's all right. Details. We have to differentiate from principles. But here, in principle, we find great respect for the person of the Guru on the part of Narottam. And as he begins his song, Shri Guru Charana Padma, Kevala Bhakti Sattva, he says those lotus feet, which then by extension includes the entire sadhaka deha of the Guru, are the Keval Bhakti Sattva. They are the abode Sattva of Keval Bhakti. So here, in offering respect to Sri Guru, he introduces what Sri Guru in the Gaudiya Vaishnava, from the Gaudiya Vaishnava perspective, is all about. That means Keval Bhakti. Keval Bhakti is another term. Keval is another term. Sometimes we hear Sudha Bhakti, Uttam Bhakti, Ananya Bhakti, Keval Bhakti. Keval means only, singular, exclusive. All these terms that I just cited are ways of referring to the bhakti that has been enunciated by Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which therein he refers to as Uttam Bhakti, drawing on verses from Bhagavatam, verses from Narad Pancharatma, where different terms are used. Narad Pancharatma says what? Sarvo Pari Vinayamuktam Tattvat Vinayam Rishikena Rishikesha Sevanam Bhakti Uchite. So Bhagavatam Svai Pumsam Parodharma. So there are many ways of referring to it. He has used the word here, Keval. It means that in his very onset here, his introductory verses to his Prem Bhakti Chandrika, that he informs us that what's going to unfold here as we go forward is the teaching of Rupa Goswami concerning Uttam Bhakti, in which the preliminary, if you will, angas or limbs of are three, all in relation to Shri Guru. Guru Padashraya, Diksha Shikshadi, and Vishrambena Guru Seva. So when Rupa Goswami begins to enunciate what is Uttam Bhakti in terms of how it's expressed, how it's participated in. He refers to these modes of expression as angas, limbs of the angi, the body of Uttam Bhakti. He defines Uttam Bhakti Anyabhilashita Shunyam Gyan Karmadi Anabhutam Anukulena Krishnanu Shilam Bhakti Uttam. It's the whole book expands really out of this verse, but in brief, as many of you are familiar, but worth repeating, the marginal characteristics of Uttam Bhakti are that it's not covered by Gyan or karma. That means that Gyan and karma, these are two paths given in Vedic literature. Karma is the general path, the social religious path, how to be an ethically, morally correct religious person, how to bring the entirety of your humanity in touch with divinity. And so therein, there is an advocacy of a polytheistic kind of perspective, worshiping different gods or aspects, macrocosmic aspects of the world that have some bearing over our microscopic sense of self. For example, we need sun, the macrocosmic, to macrocosmic manifestation of divinity, in a sense, to see with our eyes. We need wind to talk, and so on and so forth. So that's it. We don't. This is a beautiful thing, actually. This is the karma mark. It's a very, very beautiful thing, but it falls short in terms of being an ultimate, a path that will lead to a goal that is worthy of attaining, from which there will be no return. For example, Gyan, on the other hand, is when the karma marg is tread successfully, when we inquire into the scripture as to how to conduct ourselves as a human being, reverentially with regard for nature, to the extent that we find gods and goddesses presiding over mountains and rivers and so on and so forth, in a very subjective, poetic, meditative of sorts, worldview, completing that course, finding that living a life that corresponds with the scriptural injunctions is fruitful and bountiful, happy, relatively speaking. One looks a little deeper into what might be found in the scripture and finds that the real fruit of the karma marg is not the things that you get, but the faith that you get, and the efficacy of scripture, which is the voice of the Godhead, beginning as it does with Om, a big affirmation that answers the questions that human beings are, which is why. We are the why. Why am I? Why? Meaning, purpose. Is there a meaning? Is there purpose? What is my meaning? What is my purpose? And Om says, yes, you're on the right track. That's a good question. The more you pursue the why, the more human you become. And the answer, of course, as I like to say, the answer to why, which is a subjective question coming from consciousness, the answer can't come from the objective world, nature. Quantitative world can't answer the qualitative question. You follow me? So nature, if we ask the why, will push us in the direction of her source from where we can get the answer. That's what scripture is about. It's coming from the realm of consciousness to answer the question that consciousness is asking. Why am I? This surfaces in human life because the Atma comes to the surface more so in human life than it does in other less complex species of life. And they'll get there too. We'll go there too, back down if we don't use the human life to ask the question seriously. And of course, in asking the question seriously, we have to come to the conclusion that it's not something that can be figured out with the gray matter between my ears. And all of the answers that seek to, all the attempts to do so, we'll find they fall short. No matter how fancily, how trickily, how well you can speak about them, reason about them. Reason itself goes out the window with these reductive perspectives that are prominent in the philosophical world today. So, boom, answer, and then so many, and do it, and so many further directions are there to help us, right? So, the fruit, what I'm saying, of the karma mark is that we find that when I turn to the scripture, I led a more bountiful life, happy life. So I got faith in the scripture. So I look, that faith is the real fruit, because then I can look further. What else is it saying here? And it's saying you're not a human. You're more than, you are the more that meets the I, that doesn't meet the I and the mind of your life that you're looking for. You are that. If you're interested in God, look at yourself. You're the thing that's most like God, and you're not a thing. The best things in life are not things. As everything gets, whoa, where am I? The objective world, you kind of hold on, but to what? We think we can hold on, but everything's here today and gone tomorrow. So anyway, from karma to gyan. And then the gyan is the direct pursuit of the self, and it's taken up by persons who have kind of played themselves out in terms of the karma mark. This is the general rule, and there's a kind of a slight in between there where we go from karma, which is a life of material acquisition, license taking. You get a license, you can take. And so within certain limitations, parameters, and so forth. And if you see the futility of taking, then just not take, right? This is the Gyan mark, not to take. That less is more. Move in this direction. This is the Gyan mark. So when develops adhikar for that, then Dhyan, meditation is what in between these two, karma and Gyan, is the nishkam karma. So go ahead and do the karma, follow the varnashram as the system is, but without attachment to the results, because you can't just sit down and meditate. You're going in a certain trajectory for a long time. How long? Forever, anadi, without any beginning. Now you're going to change the course. This is huge. So do it like this. We keep moving in that direction, but don't be attached to the result. Give up the fruits. In fact, if you can give the fruits, if you can do the work and what you need to sustain yourself reasonably, and then the abundance that rises above that, give that to Bhagwan. That becomes then stepping stone, right, to bhakti. Or nishkam karma, give up the fruit, go to Gyan. So anyway, karma and Gyan, these are two paths of the Vedas. We respect them. Do not respect them is a nam aparad. But the desire for them, that we say that you're cheating yourself. That is kaitava dharma. You're just cheating yourself there. Bhakti comes to us through sadhu sangha, and it doesn't seek the qualification that Gyan seeks. It only seeks faith, through which will arise naturally through associating with those who are driven by that faith and inner experience themselves. So when Rupa Goswami is speaking about Uttam Bhakti, he says it's bhakti that's not covered by Gyan or karma. He means that this is an independent path from karma and Gyan. You may recall, I cited Vyasa earlier. He wrote the whole Bhagavatam. He wrote all the Vedic literatures, and he wasn't satisfied. And Narad told him it's because you have not emphasized bhakti in such a way that people could even understand it. It's a path unto itself. People might think, yes, I will do worship, and worship will help me get liberation. I will worship the God, and then I will know I am God. Or one may think that that as in the karma marg, there is upasana, worship of different gods and goddesses, as I mentioned earlier. So the worship of Vishnu is there too. It's good. It's another form of upasana. So they may just think bhakti just kind of reduce it into karma, or in the Gyan marg, make it means to the ends of Gyan, mukti unto itself. So he told him to rewrite the Bhagavad Purana, go into a trance, you're capable, samadhi nanusmratan vicheshtitam. And what comes of that? Right about that. So his trance is mentioned in the Bhagavatam Vyasas. And of course, this is the Achintya Beda perspective. He saw Bhagavan with his Shakti, like he saw the moon in its halo. That's means it's Sarup Shakti. He saw its shadow, Maya Shakti, and he saw the jivas in the shadows, and the remedial measure for that, bhakti. So the bhakti, Keval Bhakti that he refers to here, Uttam Bhakti Rupa Goswami, is not a bhakti that it's independent of karma and Gyan. We don't do bhakti because we don't do bhakti and worry, like Arjuna worried in the Gita. You're asking me to take up this bhakti yoga, but it doesn't seem that easy. Got to control the mind. It's like trying to capture the wind. I might not be successful, and in the course of doing so, I will have foregone all the rules of the Varnashram, and I'll be culpable for that. What's my position? What did Krishna tell him? Do this bhakti, and even if you're imperfect in it, you'll get the result that you could have got by perfectly executing Varnashram for hundreds of lifetimes and more. Such is the power of bhakti. So we don't think that if I do Varnashram, my bhakti will be improved. That's to have your bhakti covered by karma. Or that if I don't do some Varnashram rule, my bhakti will be negatively affected. No. And not covered by Gyan. So we don't do bhakti for mukti. After all, bhakti can give mukti, even the Gyanis agree with that. But mukti can't give bhakti. So it's obvious, right? Bhakti is superior. So anyway, these are the marginal characteristics, right? Bhakti is not Uttam Bhakti, not covered by Gyan and karma, or it's not meant to facilitate the pursuit of non-karmic desires, just ordinary desires. It's not for that purpose. It's for its own purpose. And the purpose is to satisfy Bhagavan, an ongoing Krishnanushilan, an ongoing ever, forever. One of my godbrothers asked Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj, you're talking about always like selfless giving, and isn't there any point that, you can take something? He said, no. The giving, of course, is the gift, right? The giving is the gift. Destination, even the destination is the path, because the sadhana and the sadhya, they're one. You have to realize this. When you realize this, then you'll have some taste for bhakti. As Mahaprabhu says, Mama Janmani Janmani Shri Bhagavati Bhakti. I thought of birth, transcending birth and death, I forgot about it. Sometimes the Buddhists ask me, can you go back to God in one life? I say, in one life you will. Which one? The one where you forget about asking that question. Where you're no longer, because you're so absorbed in bhakti that, as Mahaprabhu said, I only want bhakti. I don't care about it. Wherever I am, it doesn't matter. Right? So this is what we want, to be in the world, but not of the world. So this, low battery here. Okay. So he says, Keval Bhakti, Shri Guru Charana Padma, Keval Bhakti Sadma, that you are respect to you, your feet. I touch your feet even. There. This is not a foot fetish, kind of culture. Like that. This would be some modern, Freudian interpretation there. Chaitanya was a fetish, had a foot fetish. The Hindus. No, it's not like that. Remember when I was a very young boy, somehow I heard that Hindus cover their feet, Hindu women. And I thought, what part of the body is attractive? It must be arbitrary. It was just a thought that came to my mind. I was a child. Tried to philosophize about that. So anyway, the feet, of course, we touch the feet. This is we like to. It's in the Western world. It used to be said anyway that we have to step on the head of others to get ahead. And we say that the head stepped on to get ahead by the right foot. This is how we'll progress. That said, speaking about lotus feet, I was sitting on the veranda with Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj, his veranda, on one occasion, and one of my godbrothers from ISKCON had come to visit, and he was a well-known fellow and rather likable fellow, Kirtanir. His name was Guru Kripa Swami. Some of you know him. So he came there, and Maharaj sat as he would, and would answer questions. And when it was over, he started a kirtan, which was like we would do in ISKCON, but we weren't doing it there. It was a different system. So it was like, and then he went to touch the feet of Sridhar Maharaj and push some people away. And Sridhar Maharaj said, "What are you doing?" And then they said, "Well, he wants to touch your lotus feet." And Sridhar Maharaj chuckled and said, "Well, that's what he thinks it means to touch the lotus feet." No, it's not like that. It's not a physical thing. That's not bad. I remember when I first met Prabhupada, he came to the Los Angeles airport. I had heard, of course, touch the feet of the Guru. So Prabhupada just came right up to me, looked right at me, and I just went like, "Oh, they touched his feet. I got that done. I'm done now. Everything's full flow from here." Of course, that was happened to be true. But what Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj, of course, meant was we have to come within that realm where feet are like lotuses, so to speak. And as Prabhupada used to say, well, this fly is on me. Say, went to an insect, or there might not be one, but an insect might crawl on me, but is he close to me, or are you close to me? Which is closer? You're at a distance. So it's a question of consciousness, right? So we want to enter into the Keval Bhakti, which begins with Guru Padashraya, taking shelter of the Guru, which means beautifully presented by Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj in his famous Vyasapuja offering to poem essay to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur on one occasion that was published. And, it's in its day it was published in the Harmonist magazine. It was republished in recent times in the book Shri Guru and His Grace. Very nice essay where he speaks about the necessity of help beyond one's own capabilities to solve comprehensively the problem of material existence. Guru being that an agent of that help. The limitations of after all, our capabilities for knowing and solving the problem, answering the questions of life, are part of the problem. Our intellect, our senses, our minds, these are products of our moving in the wrong direction. They're karmic products. So they're very insufficient in terms of tools or instruments to solve the problem. They arise out of the problem. The beauty of the solution is that it can use those things. It can employ imperfect things and make them perfect. So you shouldn't think this is not for thinking. There's a place for thinking here, for using your intelligence. Don't neglect using your intelligence in Krishna service. That's also required. Mind, body, intelligence. And in one sense, at least, we all come to the point of realizing that, well, my intelligence unto itself is not sufficient to sort it out. I need help from outside of that. And this is the person, Shri Guru. So Shri Guru, so Guru Parashraya, this Keval Bhakti begins, as Rupa Goswami says, with these three angas: taking shelter of the Guru, receiving initiation and siksha, and serving him or her affectionately. These are the gateway angas to bhakti. Inside of Krishna bhakti, that Rupa Goswami is explaining when he gets to the point of having a defined bhakti, how it's expressed, those angas, those limbs of the body of bhakti. These three are the gateway. So within Krishna bhakti, we find Guru bhakti. So we can't do Krishna bhakti really effectively without Guru bhakti. This is Krishna's own way. Therefore he says, Acharjamam vijaniya navamanita karichit. He says this to Uddhava and Sargadeva Guru. All the gods reside in the Guru, and I myself am the Acharya. You should know that. If you study this section of the Bhagavatam, this comes in the 11th canto, Krishna speaking about the Varnashram Guru. To speak of them, Sadguru. Speaking of the Kula Guru. What to speak of. So the principle is anything that's worth learning that can be taught to you, Krishna's teaching you that through one medium or another, whether it be the profound manifestations of nature that cause you to step back for a moment and go, I'm small. I'm not, I stand at the shore of the ocean. Where does it end? It has no end. I stand at the base of a redwood in Northern California. I feel small. I get an epiphany. I get slightly moved out of my human, individual-centric perspective that I'm not even conscious of, that I'm absorbed in, seeing everything from the vantage point of my sensual, mental, intellectual demands. Anything that does that, anything that's worth learning, even ordinary things. Krishna is the teacher. This is the Guru. In Bhagavatam said, one cannot learn everything from one Guru alone. And then a multiplicity of Gurus are mentioned. The bee was a Guru for the Avadut tree. I forget them all. The mountain, the river. This is what he means. The principle. may take any number of forms. The form in which that teaching comes to us in a comprehensive way, of course, we're going to give more attention there than to what we may learn from nature, although we work through other mediums and so forth. This is not to diminish the person of the Guru who comes into our lives and he says, Bandhu Mui Sabadhanamate, to that Guru. Bandhu Mui Sabadhanamate. I offer myself and I worship him Sabadhanamate with great care and attention. So the point here is that he's making is that there is no way in which, no other form in which Krishna is more represented and comes more closely to us than in the person of the Guru. So this manifestation of Krishna, this we would do well to pay very close attention there. This is what he's saying. This should be very with great care and attention. Sabadhanamate. I bow down to Sri Guru. Jahara prasade bhai e bhava toliya jai Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoite. So he says, my dear brother, Jahara prasade bhai. Prasade bhai. Bhai means brother. But here also, Vishnu Chakri Thakur said, Narottam is also using the word bhai, brother, to refer to his own mind. So he's talking to his own mind. It's mentioned in the Gita that Udarat Atmanatmanam Atmanam Vasadayat Atmaiva Atmanu Bandhu Atmaiva Vipuratmanaha. The mind is the friend of the conditioned soul and enemy as well. It all depends upon use. Like I said before, this mind is not going to, into itself, solve the problems for you and bring out how beautiful you are. You can't think how beautiful you are. You are much more beautiful than you could possibly imagine. But it can be used. It can, if it's not used properly, it certainly becomes the enemy. Very difficult. It's like someone who robbed the bank and said, "Oh, somebody just robbed the bank," and everybody says, "Where?" "Over there." This is the mind, right? But the mind can be trained. And this is central to yoga, of course. This is what all of the angas of bhakti are about, to absorb the mind in Krishna. That's what it is. Therefore, yena tena prakarena mana Krishna nirvesha. Somehow or other. That's how Prabhupada would reply. That's how he would translate this. How to practice somehow or other. Absorb your mind in Krishna. It gives you a lot of leeway. Somehow or other. There are many angas that are given, but somehow or other. Yeah, if this doesn't work, try that. And there's more than one way to enter the house. If you can't go with the front door, go with the back door. If you can't go through the window, try the chimney, but there's a way to get in. So that's why I say sometimes you have to be skillful as a sadhana. You have to know, you really have to know why. Why? It's not about what to do or why to do. What does this mean? What is the purpose of this rule and so forth? What am I? And overall, I'm saying this is the purpose, to absorb the mind. And if you do, well, then you're beyond the rules at that point, right? So he's speaking to his mind. Prasade bhai bhavaturiya jai Krishna prapti hoy jaha hoite. So he says that by this, my dear mind, showing regard for Sri Guru as we have been describing, and understanding Sri Guru to be the very abode of Keval Bhakti and all the implications of this. What then? E Baba Turiya Jai and Krishna Prapti Hoy Jahai. It means what? That what do we get from the Guru? This is very applicable to our Gaudiya system, in that we give, the Guru blesses a disciple to chant Harinam. Right? And typically, after some time, when the student becomes more aware of the underlying philosophy, theology, and therefore is more has greater fitness for practicing. Because if you know what you're doing, well, you can do it a little better usually than if you don't know what you're doing. If you understand the purpose behind it, then he or she, the Guru, will impart the Krishna mantra. You have Krishna Nam, and we have Krishna mantra. What's the difference between the two? Well, the difference in one sense is in Krishna Nam, for example, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This is the Nam mantra, Maha mantra it's called. It's mentioned in the Upanishads as the remedial measure, the chanting of it for the ills of Kali Yuga. Iti soyasakam nam kalika mashanam. Sava Vedeshu Rishite. All the Vedas say that this chanting of these 16 names like this, will enable you to overcome the influence of Kali Yuga. It's the Dharma for the Yuga, for the quality of the time, if you will, in which we live. So he gives the Guru, she gives the Krishna Nam and Krishna mantra. What is Krishna mantra? Well, it's full of the names of Krishna: Govindaya, Krishnaya, Gopijana Vallabhaya. These are just names of Krishna, but they're in the dative case. So in Hare Krishna Maha Mantra, they're in the vocative case, and in the Diksha mantra, they're in the dative case. Dative case means there's a petition that's involved here. I'm petitioning directly Swaha, that to you, to Govinda, to Krishna, to Gopijana Vallabha, with different names of Krishna, which also will stand out relative to different internal sentiments. But this is about supplication. So this is Guru, by this is what's being described here. By this, E Baba Turiya. Turiya means to cross over here. Crossover. E Baba means the world of material emotions. So by showing respect to the Guru, and that means taking shelter of the Guru, receiving Diksha, serving him or her affectionately. But with regard to the Diksha, we have two types of Diksha in effect: Harinam and Diksha mantra. The Diksha mantra, it's mentioned in Chaitanya Charitamrita. By the Diksha mantra, you will get samsara mocham. That means E Baba Turiya, you'll cross over material existence. And by Krishna Nam, Krishna Prapti. So he says here, Krishna Prapti Hoy Jahati. You will attain the lotus feet of Krishna. What does it mean? It means that when Sharanagati is complete, that means supplication. This is like building the dramatic stage on which the drama of Krishna Lila will be performed. That has to be built in the heart. This is the focus of sadhana. We have sadhana bhakti, we have bhava bhakti, we have prem bhakti. You have an unripened fruit, a ripe fruit, and a ripe fruit that fell off the tree and offering itself to you. So it's all the same fruit. So when in sadhana bhakti, the focus is sharanagati, supplication, growing one's faith, surrendering. Surrendering means, well, you have to give up other preoccupations. and so forth, right? Giving those up. Bhava bhakti, on the other hand, is characterized by longing. This is the stage in which longing is really appropriate. Because I've given an example before, like if you want to go to India, well, you got to have your ticket, you have to have your passport, you have to have your visa, and you have to have some money. If you don't have these things, then you want to go to India, you just say, just want to go to India. If I say, well, go get a passport. No, I want to know how to go to India. Go get a ticket. No, I want to. It's just ridiculous to be. You have to do these things first, right? These are the preliminaries. These are not separate from that. Right? When you get dysentery, then I went to India. I'm ready to come back, but I'll go again. It was worth it. So you have to go there ultimately to know what it's like. But there's steps, preliminary steps for going there. So when we put those preliminary steps in place, to the extent that we do, the longing for going there starts to have more meaning, right? You just go and read the travel logs all the time, but you never get any money to get a ticket. I want to go to India. So Sharanagati is the focus then of sadhana bhakti, and longing is the focus of bhava bhakti. There's going to be some more, obviously, one who's longing is a Sharanagati. There might be some longing within sadhana bhakti as well, obviously, but they're characterized, the two stages, differently. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to say that longing, what would he say? Appropriate longing, anyway. We find this very nice example of this in Prabhupada's prayer aboard the Jaladuta. It's a famous prayer where it's a prayer to Krishna, his friend, he says. And there he prays to Krishna. Krishna, that the fact of the matter is, he says, your life will be successful if you please Radharani. And that gets Krishna's attention. And he says, so have I got your attention now? Yes. Then he says, my guru is a Manjari of Radha. She has asked me to do something. So I think that if you give me the power to do what she has asked me, Radharani will be pleased with you by pleasing her maidservant, and then your life will become successful. Well, what has he asked you to do? What does she ask you to do? Well, it's a pretty big task to go to the Western world, preach the Vani of the Gauravani, the Vani of the words of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in a land that who knows, it's a different planet, what's going on there, what they're like, and so forth. And so the first half of this prayer then is all about Sharanagati, the power to be a Sharanagati, and then having completed that path, the second half of this poem is all about longing. There is Tomar Milane by Abhashikupai, Uchrani, Kutabani Chutta Chutivani Kayu to Putishedin, Kobe Hobe more. He's longing, Shedin, Kobe Hobe more. When will that day come? When I can all day long roam in the pastures, herding cows with you and your friends, turning somersaults, tumbling playfully throughout the day. When will that day be mine? And you can see in it that what he did in terms of Guru Seva externally, that gave rise to appropriate longing. What measures he put in to that, an example, setting an example of Sharanagati. We have to take that longing very, very seriously, right? So we can have some little bit of longing, but we need to apply ourselves. What is the teaching? We can use our intelligence to understand the philosophy. Or one fella I'm fairly philosophical. I was giving a lecture one time, and I remember this fellow said, Maharaj, we really have to, like, whatever happened, just chant and be happy. I said, why don't you do that? Because you don't know the philosophy. You can't do it. You're chanting. Are you becoming happy? Just that alone. I mean, that's true. But this will help you actually to understand why you're not getting a taste. What are your anarthas? What was it? So on and so forth. So Bhaktivinoda said, people in Bengal at his time, so many people, they're chanting, but they don't have Sambandha Gyan if they're not getting the result. They don't have the Sambandha Gyan that, for example, to know that the name of Durga, it will not have the same effect chanting it as chanting the name of Krishna. They don't have this basic Sambandha. So the engine's not starting. It should bring us to that anyway, chanting. So the Krishna point of it here is, he says, "Hey Baba Turi, like by serving the Guru, we'll get the Diksha mantra." Is the implication. We'll be able to cross over material existence. We find Gopakumar. He chanted his Diksha mantra and we went all different places, all different possible religious experiences. He had a particular destiny. His Guru is described in different ways in the text. In one place, I think Krishna says, I myself became the Guru and came to you. Another place, I think he refers to Radharani sent me to tell you. He's giving a story. This is Gopakumar's teaching and so forth. Some of you are familiar with it. But at any rate, in Gopakumar telling his own story to his disciple, being a guru figure himself, he explains he went so many places by chanting his mantra, but ultimately to go to Goloka, to Krishna Charan, to the lotus feet, the Charana Padma of Krishna, the lotus feet of Krishna in Vrindavan, his mantra's efficacy preceded that. It left off there. And how he went to his final destination was chanting his favorite names of God. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. And being absorbed in the meditation that gave rise to, of the leelas that are found inside the name. What's in a name? Oh. Even materially, we think, come home and your daughter says, "Oh, somebody called. Did you get his name?" No. Everything is lost. If we had his name, and if we had his social security number, we get everything from him, his identification. So what's in a name? Oh, Guna, Rupa Guna, Lila, Parshada. The form is in the name. The qualities of Krishna in the name. The Leelas, his associates, which are part of the Leela, all found in a name. So this is a valuable thing that Gurudev has given us. Then he gives us the Diksha mantra to help us take advantage of the name. So by the Diksha mantra, we'll cross over material existence. We'll enter into bhava, liberation. And by Krishna Nam, and the subsequent meditation that takes over the mind, will be taken to the lotus feet of Krishna. So he's got good reason here to show respect in his opening verse to Shri Guru. And now what? Lost. I'm going to open it again. It's not opening. What's the time?
12:30.
Well, I don't know what happened here, but can someone give me? Yeah, the lyrics. Shri Guru Charana Padma, it says, Guru Mukha Padma Bhokya, Chittete Koriya Aikya, Harna Koriyo Manayasha. So, Guru Mukha Padma Bhokya, he goes to the next verse. He said that the Guru, from the mouth, Mukhya, of the Guru, comes Bhokya. Bhokya means instructions, words. Bhokya. Guru Mukha Padma Bhokya. Chitte te kori aikya. And you should take the words of the Guru and make them one with your own heart. That's not very hard, in one sense. Why is that? Because the Guru speaks to us, she speaks to us in such a way that we feel, that's how I think. I agree with that. That really works for me. The Guru is actually, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, in the heart as Chaitanya Guru, and appears outside the heart as a Mahant, as a sadhu. Oh my goodness. She is not some foreign imposition. It's said in the Shruti, one must have a guru. Saguru eva vigachet. Saguru tadvigyanam saguru abhibhagat. One must have a guru. It sounds a little like, okay, I'll step back from that. But I always looked at it differently. I must have a guru. I must have him as my guru. I've been captured by his words. They're not external to me. They resonate with me. We are already on the same page. He's saying it better than I could say it. That's right. That's it. I feel in his presence that I'm nothing, but I could do anything. These two contradictory feel, I'm nothing, but I could do anything. I could ascend to the highest possible prospect. Although I'm nothing. I must have a guru, him as my guru. It's a law of love, right? Yes, you agree. So, Guru Mukha Padma Bhokya, Chitte te Koriyak. It's not hard to make our hearts one with the words of the Guru in this sense. Of course, there'll be some other details that disagree with my heart, but I know that's not really where my heart's at. My heart has been taken away by somebody else over there. And I'm resonating with those ideas or that prospect, but I know it's not. I've already been there, and it's not satisfying me. But so this is the life of a sadhak, of course. It's a bit of a struggle, right? To focus my senses in relation to sense objects for the service of Krishna, rather than pursue sense objects for the service of my own senses, which will only foster my material identity that's made up of senses and mind. I want to deconstruct that. It stands to reason that if you deconstruct that by a process through which your personality has come about to begin with, if you reverse this out, another personality will come out, right? Eternal one, because the object that you're serving is eternal, Krishna. So bringing the senses in touch with sense objects for the pleasure of Krishna will give you a body for that. That's coming further as we go in the verse here. But he says here, Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Satam. So some work is there in an ongoing sense to make my heart one with the words of the Guru. Now, the word Vakya also means, incidentally, betrothed, to betroth. So this is ultimately what the words of the Guru are about. So we can hear the words of the Guru. We want to make our heart one with them. That will be done on different levels as we go forward. As we go forward, we'll find out we'll realize what is the heart of the Guru. And what's behind all of the words that he or she is talking about. What's the driving principle, the power, the feeling is driving that. And we'll want to become with that. In a broad sense, of course, in Gaudiya Vaishnavism, what is that? He's concerned with the betrothment, if you will, of Radha and Krishna, to bring them together, to engage them. There's Swakiya inside the Parakiya. That's maybe one way to understand Jiva Swami. Inside the Parakiya, there is the strong desire for Swakiya. Radha wants to marry Krishna. We want to bring them together, but the nature of the bhav is such that it's not permitted, so that it creates a certain type of ongoing intrigue, given the cultural setting and so forth, excitement. So we want to bring Radha and Krishna together. This is what the Guru is talking about. This is center stage, right, of the Vrindavan Leela from different vantage points. Madhurya Rasa, of course, is directly involved in that. Sakya Rasa is friendly to that, helping, in some respects, directly helping. But Vatsalya Rasa is externally in opposition to that, which facilitates the Parakiya, but internally it's not. You don't think Mother Yasoda wants Krishna to marry Radha? She's got that all figured out already. So much so that when Radha comes to cook in the morning, she goes and gets some items, gives her a gift, and those are the gifts that you would give to the girl who you wanted to be the bride of your son. She'll take them home, and she's already married to somebody else. So they have to be hidden by one of the manjaris, so that her mother-in-law doesn't see them and think, "What's Yasoda doing up there? What's she talking?" So everybody wants this. You bring Radha and Krishna together, right? And so this is ultimately what the Bhakti of the Guru is about. And he says, and you should keep this in your heart. Don't go everywhere and talk about these secrets. There are other instructions that you could talk about to anyone and everybody. But now that you've come to the point to understand my heart, I share that with you. But not with everybody who's not come to that stage. So there are other things you can share with them, but this I'm sharing with you. This is Priti Lakshana. He wrote a book a long time ago about that. Right? Priti Lakshana. What does it say? Guhyamakati Prichati. Guhyamakati Prichati. To share the secrets. To get the Guru to share his secrets with us. So that will light a candle in the heart. Now that candle has to be protected from wind, but it won't go out. So that's what's being said here. Keep this secret instructions, these deep esoteric truths in your heart. Means to cultivate this bhava. You don't go and throw swine before the pearls before the swine, right? Not everybody will understand. Therefore, the developing Madhyamadikari, intermediate advanced devotee, will check even the symptoms of bhav, like tears, and so that people won't be attracted just by that alone, by the teaching. To understand the underlying philosophy that it's the ground, so it's the soil out of which this will grow. So Narottam and other places in his Prem Bhakti Chandrika, I believe in Prem Bhakti Chandrika, he has emphasized this point. Yeah, in Prem Bhakti Chandrika, he says that you don't, you have to keep this bhava private, so to speak. Now, there may be places to speak about it. And there's a difference between speaking about the flame of the candle and speaking in such a way as to put a candle that hasn't been lit yet. Do you understand? You got to put the candle in the heart. So there's something called rasa tattva, the tattva about rasa, the philosophy about it. What is rasa? What isn't rasa? What are the different rasas? How are they different? And so forth. What's particular about the rasa that you will experience? This is like giving the candle. You got to give the candle. But once the flame is lit, then it's like we wrote a book about Prabhupada and all of his statements about his affinity for Sakya-rasa. It's a very nice little book. And some of my godbrothers said, this is not something to talk about. I said, I'm not talking about it. Prabhupada did. These are all the things he said. But we're talking about, we're giving the candle here. The light. What is his particularities within, if he should reveal that about him? That may be something. Not for everybody, but let's get the candle. So anyway, there's a difference between the two. It's important. Books like Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, even with Lonely Money, they're really candles. We're talking about what is the tattva of rasa. So this is important to us. It won't be important to everybody at once, but at a certain point, what else? What's that stai something and Pralamba this and all these? Of course, we have to be careful in that too, that we don't just get caught up because we can fling out a few Sanskrit words. It's mystical. They have a basic translation, but what they mean, you could say them in English too. Some of them not that easily defined. It might take a few words, a few sentences in a paragraph, but anyway, there is a possibility, and Bhakti speaks of this, of an advancing devotee developing a taste to become enamored by that and ready to use that in the public and bring attention to himself. It may cause the light to go out or to flicker. I'll tell you myself that I had my first, one of my deeper early experiences as a sadhaka was in Los Angeles, the temple that Prabhupada called New Dwarka. And I used to come back at night after going out and selling Prabhupada's books. I used to go out by myself, take the bus out to Hollywood Boulevard and sell books. And then I would, for an hour, and then I would chant for 20 minutes, and then I would sell books. And then I'd get back on the bus and go back to the temple. That was my routine. So at night, I'd come back and I'd take prasadam and bathe and take prasadam. Then I'd go to the last artik. Well, they had this artik, Shine artik or something. It was like 8 o'clock at night or something before the deities would take a rest. So there was hardly ever anybody in the temple at that time. And used to play a recording, maybe of Prabhupada chanting, and then Pujari would be there. So I would come in every night and see the deities. And so one night I was there before Jagannath on the one side, right hand altar, we had Jagannath, Subhadra. And so Jagannath began to dance and spoke to me. And I wept and I wept, and there was no one there. And then it was over, and I went outside and I crawled inside of a van, closed the door, tried to get underneath the foot mat. Foot mats. I felt so like unworthy of such a blessing and experience, and that I wanted to hide my ecstasy. So in my own experience, this is the natural result. So if we somehow or other don't react like that, having come out of that, and then somehow bring attention to ourselves, this is cautioned against, so to speak. So that's like what he's saying here. Keep this in your heart. I mean, I just told you something about this. I'm just telling you a story. But you can, the deities will speak to you too. That's not such a big thing. They're more secrets. That's what they say. They're more secrets. So he's saying you protect your Mahava. Understand what protect it and grow it naturally. So, and Shiguru Charani Rati Ese Uttamagati Prashade Pure Sarva Asha. He says, he says, Chitete Kuriya Agya Arana Kuriya Manehasha. So don't aspire for anything else. Just the words of the Guru are sufficient in themselves. Prabhupada used to say, I think Prabhupada used to say, one letter from the Guru is sufficient to instruction to become perfect. And Prabhupada got a letter from Bhaktisiddhanta that he wrote to him and said, I have not been able to serve the mission directly, being a household, or if there's any service I could do, Guru Maharaj, please tell me. Prabhupada Bhaktisiddhanta wrote back to him and said, I think it would be good for you if you could speak in English. And Prabhupada took it as an order. He told, my Guru Maharaj ordered me to do this. And then he became perfect just by focusing on this one instruction. So such is the power. So put other desires aside. So you'll get the feet of Krishna. At the feet of Guru, he says, attachment, rati, to the feet of the Guru, ese uttamagati, is the greatest attainment. Well, the thought is that sometimes I follow the Guru to get the greatest attainment. How can the feet of Guru, attachment to that, be the attainment itself? The idea here, what he's saying here is that the Guru is eternal. So with regard to the inner life that he spoke about in the first half of this verse, the Guru doesn't give help us to attain that and disappear. One time, Prabhupada was bathing in the Ganga. We took him to the Ganga in Mayapur to bathe. He wanted to go. It was a short walk, but he was older, and so we went with him, and then he stepped in and he bathed in the Ganga, and then he reached his hand up, and Bhavananda put his hand out to pull Prabhupada out. So Prabhupada allowed him to pull him out, and then Prabhupada went like this, threw his hand down. And Bhavananda was, what? What did I do wrong? Prabhupada, that is Mayavad. Prabhupada said, they use the Guru to attain, and then they dispense with the Guru altogether. We are not like that. Because in Mayavad, even Krishna is just a medium to attain something. I mean, it's bizarre. This beautiful form of Krishna with these fascinating, charming leelas and super extraordinary qualities. Such a qualified, handsome youth he is. I mean, it's unbelievable. And we're going to use him to enter into something that has no guna, no qualities, no form, no movement. It's going to be quiet, and it's compared to going to sleep without dreaming. I mean, you should, when you get a chance, if you have the opportunity to rise this, when you have a discussion with somebody about this, you should let them know, there's a little difference between your ideal and ours. I'm talking about the Mayavad perspective. Your goal is to go to sleep. It's compared to sleeping. Dreamless sleep. It's restful. Yeah. If you wake up, it's restful. Anyway, the example is given, of course, of deep sleep, sushupti. The mind closes down, the body closes down, but you're still there. But in Mayavad, in Dvaitavad, is there any bliss? Jiva Goswami, some said there's little bliss. You ended suffering. But how can there be bliss? There's nothing. Bliss it requires an interaction. There's no interaction. I mean, I'd love to talk to one of those Shankaracharyas. These are the simple ways in which Chaitanya Mahaprabhu made his case to persons like Prakashananda Saraswati or Venkatapata or Sarvabhauma in simple ways. He said to the Shaivites who argue with the Vaishnavites, who's superior, Vishnu or Shiva? He said, well, I don't know. Shiva takes the Ganges on his head, and that's the foot wash of Vishnu. Maybe Vishnu? Maybe. What do you think? So, common sense is hard to come by. Ujjapatrita Maharaj compared bhakti to common sense and gave the example of Alexander the Great, who was amongst those who were told, whoever amongst you warriors can untie the Gordian knot will conquer the land ahead, which was India. So many great stalwarts came and tried to untie the knot, and they were unsuccessful. And Alexander, as a youth, said, I can do it. And everybody laughed at him. And he came up and pulled out his sword and cut it. He conquered India, right? So, a little common sense is very uncommon, unfortunately. Bhakti is full of common sense. I've given some examples. So he says, Shri Guru Charanarati, Esai Uttamakati. The Uttamakati, the ultimate goal, is attachment to the feet of the Guru. It means the Guru is eternal. So the Guru is not left behind. We will enter there, and Gurudev will be there also in a corresponding form. In a group, we will follow a paradigmatic figure in the Leela, Lalita, Vishaka, Rupa Manjari, Subal, Sri Dham, so forth and so on. And Gurudev will also be there. And with his permission, we'll have some direct service. This idea. So there's nowhere that in any school of Vedanta, I would say, where the Guru figure is more important. It plays a role from the beginning with no end. That's a good thing, right? So that's why he says attachment to the feet of the Guru is itself uttam gati. And the ultimate means the ultimate goal. Ye prasade puri sarva. So, by his mercy, he says, all desires will be fulfilled. Now, what does that mean? Remember what the context we were talking about. What is the Guru Vakya? What does it mean to keep it in the heart in the fullest sense? Such deep revelation. Attachment to his feet is itself the ultimate goal. I sing Gurudev in terms of his or her bhav and existing in the Paravyam and so forth, and he will, by his mercy, all your desires are fulfilled. It means desires in relation to all these things will be fulfilled. Now, Prabhupada once said, we should make little Gornikai deities and give them to people with a stick of incense and tell them, wave this incense at these statues and chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare, and all your desires will be fulfilled. He had an idea like that. This is the kind of liberty that my Guru Maharaj had with Krishna. What about all the rules for deity worship? It's Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu. He had the liberty to say those kind of things, and they go, really? Okay. Now, this is a provisional kind of thing. Obviously, you fulfill all your desires, and people think, yeah, I got all kinds of desires. That's not what's being mentioned here, right? When it says the Guru will fulfill all your desires, it means the desires that will come in relation to the ideal that has become entered your heart by the grace of the Guru. How to serve Krishna. Chakudan lilaje, jame jame prabhushe, the brigyan hriday prakashita. So Chakudan lilaje says that he who gives the gift of transcendental vision is my master birth after birth. Jame jame prabhushe. Vigyan Hriday Prakash. He manifests divine knowledge within one's heart. Chakudan Lilavjay, it means this. It means that, of course, we say that we should learn to see with the eyes of the scripture, Shastra Chakshu. So a new set of eyes. This is our third eye through the scripture, which gives us a way of looking at the world. It's very different than material eyes unto themselves, what reading they will give us, right? So we distance ourselves from the one when it doesn't correspond with the other, with a scriptural perspective. But what's being said here further is that eyes, they guide us, right? I mean, we see and we go accordingly. And then we touch and feel and smell and hear where they have shown us a prospect to move from this place to the next. So he's beginning with the eyes, but what he's saying is that by the grace of the Guru, you will attain a sadhaka deha, means his practitioner's body, in which the eyes are divine, and by extension, all of the senses are divine, because they're all being used in relation to sense objects, as we said earlier, for the pleasure of Krishna. That, as that sadhaka deha becomes perfect, then Janme Janme Prabhu say, if it takes a while, he says, if it takes a while, that all of you, Tashi Krishna Namali, Nama Velgrayamindri, Sevan Mukhe Jivadro Swayam. With material senses, you cannot see Krishna, you cannot hear Krishna, you cannot feel Krishna. Sevan Mukhe Jivadro. So by serving, beginning with the tongue, by vibrating the holy name, then given by the Guru, then gradually all the senses will be purified. First, we said, if we get eyes of the scriptures, okay, we're going to do that. Start to spiritualize the eyes. Then gradually, through this practice of converting the enjoying ego to a serving ego, all of the senses will become spiritualized. And if it takes a while, it might. Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in some of his books, he said, yugas, to move from one stage to the next could be a possibility. But Divya Yuga, to move from Nishta to Ruchi, is possible. See, that's why it's important to understand this. You hear this regularly, get good association. You can't give it up no matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter. When you become resolved to that, resigned to that, then progress will be rapid, comparatively. But what he says here is that the Guru is so determined to help you that birth after birth, Janme Janme Prabhu say, he's my Lord, birth after birth. He will come birth after birth after birth until you're perfect. This is hard to understand, but not hard to understand. It has to be, we'll think. How is it possible? My Guru has gone to the uppercut. We say, Nitya Lila Pravishto, Vishnupan, he's gone to the Nitya Lila. How will he come? Will he look the same? I'll be in a different body. How will I recognize? Of course, the Guru is Krishna, coming in different forms. We can look at it like that. But one time, this question was asked to Pujapat Sridhar Maharaj by some of Prabhupada's disciples after Prabhupada had left, departed. And they were very, of course, attached to him. They were. And so we asked, what does the Guru, will he come back? So there's the general answer. Well, the Guru is coming back because the principle of the Guru is coming back. Right? The Guru is Krishna, coming in different forms. And it won't feel any different because it's Krishna. But at the same time, he gave that answer and he saw they're not quite satisfying. He said, but if the disciples are ardent for him to return, then he will go to Krishna and the Nitya Lila and say, they're calling me. And Krishna said, well, I can send somebody else. No, they want me. It's me they're saying. Then all right, you go. Something like that. He explained it like point only is that how the dynamics, or to what extent we should have confidence that, let me put this back on. Excuse me. That birth after birth, he, she, the guru, is committed to this. We find in the story of Gopi Kumar, when he finally arrives in Golok, Krishna says, I watched, oh, so many doors you knocked on, and they slammed them in your face. You were begging on my behalf. You went through so many things for me. I was with you the whole time. But now finally you've come. I've been looking down the path. Every day I go herding, and I look down the path. Is he coming? And it feels like that about all of you. Is he coming? Through the medium of Guru, he's coming to bring you life after life after life. I turned the book upside down. Prema bhakti jaha hoite avidya vinashayate vilegai chahara charitra. So, from the Guru, Prem Bhakti emanates, and by Sri Guru's influence, ignorance is destroyed, and the Vedic scriptures sing of his character. So, there are many features to ignorance of Vidya, is the core of our entanglement, and Bhakti uproots it at the core. That's its power. All our karmic implications are rooted in avidya, while Gyan can eradicate the karmic implications that have yet to bear fruit, that are waiting for their time. But it cannot deal with the prabdha, the present karma. Bhakti can, such as its efficacy. It can uproot at the core, at the genesis of our problem, the avidya, which takes different forms. And the kleshas, it means, all these things, anarthas. So Prema Bhakti Jaha Hoite, from the Guru, Prem Bhakti emanates, and one of its side effects, if you will, is that in sharing itself ultimately with the disciple, is that abhidibinash, it destroys ignorance, and the implication is that it is the comprehensive method for eradicating ignorance comparatively, as I've just explained. Vedega Jahara Charita, and as such, the Vedas sing about him, his character, the character of the Guru. We'll go on, finish here. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adhamaja Narabandhu Lokera Jivan. So Shri Guru, he says, speaks about his compassion. He's driven by what is said in the previous verse. Life after life, he's going to come. He's an ocean of compassion, he says here. Karuna Sindhu. There's no limit to, as there doesn't appear to be, to the ocean when we stand on the shore, as to compassion. Adhamarjan Arbandhu was an example of that. He's an ocean of mercy, and he's a friend, the Bandhu, the friend of the Adhama, the lowest, the fallen. He's the friend of the fallen. Are you? Or are you disqualifying the fallen people? We hope not. Reminds me of something terrible in relation to the war. One of my disciples, Namarasana, she's in Poland, and she's helping with other devotees there in our Sangha to give shelter to people, to devotees, and there's ordinary people. And after 3 million people have come in, in exodus from Ukraine. And so I encouraged her. I explained to her that there's a social welfare aspect of Gaudiya Vaishnavism that's headed by Nityananda Prabhu. That's an interesting story in itself, or aspect of the dispensation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, giving prema bhakti, but social upliftment at the same time. Nityananda Prabhu was, and his his associates were involved in that, feeding people, giving housing during the famine in Bengal and so forth. And so I encouraged her, that's just good. You feel it. And she was feeling enthused by that. But she said there's something that really disturbed me more than the war and the plight of the Ukrainians. The Polish and the Ukrainian people are close together, they relate to one another also. And I said, so what's that? She said, well, that some spiritual groups and religions and even some devotees have spoken about their plight in ways that are unbecoming. And I just can't relate to that. I'm shocked by that. That is the most stunning thing, the most disconcerting thing. The head of the Russian Orthodox Church said, this is actually a metaphysical war. Because in Ukraine, they have gay pride parades. Mm-hmm. So this has been ordained by God, and Putin is the representative. Mm-hmm. Wow. To me, it's the head of the friggin' church. This is horrible, horrible. And then some devotees had said, well, they're all mediators, so what do you expect? They're getting their karma. Mm-hmm. I mean, why are you a vegetarian? Did you ever think about it? Why are you a vegetarian? Be kind to other living beings. And you have no kindness. And the beings that you're being kind to, they eat other beings. They're not all vegetarians. Right? So some humans, they may be even subhuman. They eat meat. They don't know any better. You think they're good. If you eat meat, you're going to get the bad result that's talked about. They may not get they won't get the same result that you because you know better. You have no kindness for them. What is your vegetarianism? What does it have to do anyway? Bhakti, ahimsa is the principle. Non-violence. Anyway, terrible, just terrible, shocking. These things should be called out, understood for what they are. So, he's the friend of the fallen people. He has compassion. It's an oceanic. It means it's not just compassion just for devotees. Krishna has compassion for devotees. He doesn't interact with other people because they're not within the circle of the Antaranga Shakti that he moves. But through his devotees and the Guru, who is the incarnation of his mercy. I was once standing, I was used to next to Prabhupada's Vyasa in Los Angeles. He gave a lecture and said, so the Guru is the incarnation of Krishna's mercy. Just like it really worked for me. As you can see, I just one of those things you just remember. Later I found in Sandarbhas, and it's mentioned the Guru is the Kripa, the devotee, the Guru, the Vaishnava, the Kripa avatar of Krishna, the Kripa Shakti of Krishna. So he extends his compassion outside of the circle of his own direct influence to devotees who are in the world and had experience of material suffering. They share their compassion to ordinary people. Sometimes with Prabhupada, driving with Prabhupada in India, you'd stop at the light, and there'd be beggars would come up, and they'd have one hand. Prabhupada would ask for some rupees and give to them. One of my godbrothers was standing on the balcony of that rented temple in Calcutta with Prabhupada, and some beggars were down below. And he said to Prabhupada, sometimes I actually feel sorry for them. And Prabhupada looked at him and said, why only sometimes? He was thinking, it's Maya, I know I shouldn't feel sorry for them. It's just their karma. This very harsh, bhakti is about softening the heart. That's what it's about. When he said the Guru is an ocean of mercy, of compassion, it's boundless. Boundless, it means. It doesn't mean just for the advanced devotees, for all devotees, and for non-devotees also. And the plight of people in this world. I mean, we're not going to go and open necessarily. Maybe occasions like Namarasana and the group there have opportunity to do something, of a kind of a lower level compassion, if you will. It's not bringing a comprehensive solution, but it's something that's direly needed. They can't just divorce their heart from that. I mentioned the work of Udarandatta Thakur, who's called Patita Pavana. Patita means Pavana means friend of the fallen. He's the friend of the fallen. And during the famines in Bengal, he had money, so he built houses for people and he had a 10-acre kitchen set up to feed people during the famine. Nityananda is a Turner associate doing this. We have no scope for such, for having the feeling at least. So anyway, Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adamarjanarabha. So it means he's a friend of the fallen. So we have to feel fallen to be his friend. This is the success of Gaudiya Vaishnava. I feel fallen. Not I feel I'm making progress, I'm important. I'm fallen. Some commentators say with regard to Rasalila, when the gopis wept, that was it. Then Krishna reappeared. That's the culmination. They wept. So this is the crying yoga. They haven't started that one yet. We got the patent on that one. Crying yoga. They got laughing yoga. We got crying yoga. Cry and know. It is Lokanath Lokera Jivan. So Lokanath, of course, is, as I mentioned at the beginning, the name of his guru. He says, "Oh Master, Lokanath, please be merciful and give me the shade of your lotus feet." Lokanath Lokera Jivan, in a broader sense, Lokanath, Loka means world, means people. Lokanath, Lord of the world. And the life of everyone, Lokera Jivan, Lokanath Lokera, it's often taken in a broader context to refer to the principle of Guru, Samasti Guru, the macrocosmic Guru Tattva that appears macrocosmically in different individuals and so forth. And he's written in such a way that it's applicable not only to his own Guru, whose name happens to be Lokanath, which has that meaning. And he says, "Ha Prabhu Korodoya." So this ha is like calling out in anguish. This is Narottam. Calling out, he's such an advanced, superlative devotee, and he's feeling in this way. Ha Prabhu Korodoya. Dehamore Padecha, Tupade Lori Sharan, Ebejas Kushu Triwan. I surrender at your feet. May your fame be proclaimed throughout the three worlds. Narottam Thakur ki jai. Narottam Parivar ki jai. Bhakti Vinod Parivar ki jai. Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Gaur Pranam. So I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you on this day, commemorating my own birth. I remember once in Navadvip, in Sridhar Maharaj's feet on his veranda, one of my godbrothers said, Pujapad Sridhar Maharaj, Guru Maharaj, he said, "Today's a very inauspicious day." And Sridhar Maharaj said, "Really? What happened? What's in the stars?" And he said, "Today's my birthday." And Sridhar Maharaj said, "Oh no, don't think like that. In this life, you've got a human birth. That's very rare. There's more species on the end of my finger than you could count human beings on the planet. It's a very rare birth, and it gives one a great opportunity." What does Govinda Das say? Dulabha Manava Janama Satsange. Dulabha Manava Janama. To have the birth as a human is very rare. And with that, Sridhar Maharaj said, Dulabha Manava Janama, quoting Govinda Das's prayer, Dulabha Manava Janama, Satsange. Tahara e bhava sindhu. Along with that, you have Satguru. My God, Vishnu John Maharaj used to say, the distance we have traveled thus far before meeting our Guru is far greater than the distance we have to go from here. That is just a short, very short distance. To put these two things together, human birth and satsanga, this is the recipe then. He said so. It's a very auspicious day. So in this life, I got human birth. This life, I got more than one Sadguru. So I'm very blessed, and I want to share that blessing with you, living for that. So I think of all of you from one time or another. Some of you more than, for good reasons, for more than others, some for bad reasons. So try to appreciate what good opportunities has come to us through our Paribar from Bhakti Thakur, and take advantage of that. Love one another, love everybody. Love is the answer. Shri Sri Gauranitananda ki jai. Krishna Balaram ki jai. Radha Buddhadev ki jai. Oh, can we sing this song?
Divine grace to the Tripurari, Swami ki jai.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma.
Shri Guru Charana